Hi, I do video gaming as a hobby. However, I also do occasional modding for games I play, both in private and in, public. However, I ran into some issues when modding for Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin. So, if you are someone who's also running into the same problems, which would be not knowing how to get Mod Organizer 2 working for Dark Souls 2, like I was having, and you're having a lot of tough issues with the actual mods, getting them installed and figuring out the instructions they give, then this is for you. So, you downloaded the mods you're wanting to play. First things first, make sure to check the load order. And a lot of mods, like for example, this mod, will actually give you a load order. It's down right here. So, I'm not using this mod. You don't need it. However, I am using the renewal project, so this is important. I'm also using the gear renewal project, so this is important as well. And no matter what mod you're using, you will need these config files. They are very important. You can download them either on the renewal project or the gear renewal project. And they all go before this mod. It's very important to figure your stuff out. Very, very important. Okay, so you picked out all the mods you want and you've downloaded them. So this is my example mod for now. What I do is two things. One, I create a new folder and I title it. In this case, it's my game mods, and I throw it in there. Second, I create a subfolder of all the games I'm modding. So for example, you can see I have Cyberpunk, I have Dark Souls, I have the Tomb Raider games, and I also keep temporary folders here. So, for example, my Cyberpunk folder is really long in its list. So having a temporary folder I can open side by side helps me update my mods in bulk. So, in this example, I would throw my example mod into the Dark Souls Scholar of the First Sins. And in here, I have all my stuff. I can get rid of this one for now. It's just an example. However, make sure you unzip all your mods, either individually with WinRAR, or you can basically click and drag on everything and do it at once. Just make sure you extract everything to a separate folder. So they will extract every one of these zips to their own individual folders, as if you were to do it individually. Then create a new folder, like I have up here, and throw everything in there. It's very important. It helps you keep organized. Next, with this specifically, number all your mods so you can go through everything in the load order. It makes your life so much easier. Okay, this first section is going to deal with a very weird mod, as it is our first load order mod. You can see it has a Dark Souls proc. So the web page is not the most descriptive on how you're supposed to go about this. I found it a bit confusing. However, all you have to do is double click, and when it opens up into this tab, which will be your Dark Souls. It's just a subtab. Double click basically the Dark Souls and keep this as this, hit save. You will get this telling you it was created. Second, just in case, create a new folder and call it backup. This is just in case. Now, you want to take your Dark Souls file here, which will launch the game, and just move it to your backup. And your patched Dark Souls, we're just going to get rid of the patched, call it Dark Souls. This is how this mod works. Now you're good to go, and you will have a dead zone that is more familiar to most games and not the weird dead zone that Dark Souls 2 has. Okay, we're going to start with the next section of the mods, which are pretty easy, relatively. They're mostly all drag and drop. So, we take everything from the lighting engine, drag and drop. Pretty easy. If it asks you to override, do so. Same thing here. Drag and drop, and override when necessary. I made a small mess up, so I had to send everything back over. However, it will ask you to override, just override. Okay, so this is where it might get a little confusing, as you have 3 that are not drag and drop yet. And what the mod page will ask you to do is to drop in the textures, then the normal maps, then the displacement maps, then the Spectre maps. However, what we have is Albedo, Spectre, and normal. So, what I have figured is the Albedo is the texture. So we go in, basically take everything, and we're going to move it all to the texture override. Replace everything when necessary. Now, we go to the next one, which is the normal. Same thing. This will be the one time we backtrack with a little bit of annoyance. These are the texture override displacements. And again, you just throw it all into the texture override. But then we have to go back into this to get the Spectre maps. Why it's like this, I'm not too sure. I don't know why they don't have everything together. But then we can move on to the gear. Same thing here. It's the textures, normal, Spectre. So, in our case, Albedo. I haven't checked out the 4K version of this mod, as I think that's a bit overkill for my needs. However, it might be different on those in the naming schemes, but at least for what I have, this isn't. And we just replace everything that we need. Now that that is all done, the next one we need is the config files. Your game will break if you do not have this. So you want it. Basically, go into them each and just drag and drop into the text override and replace when necessary. I don't know why, because don't get me wrong, I can understand why the config files are separate. However, these mods could be a little bit easier, and I understand that. But they're not, so this is what we have to deal with. And then, this is very easy. Drag and drop. And there we go. We have all of the base files we need. All the easy ones. Okay, so our next step is a little bit more difficult, as if we go into the cat mod, you will need these two. However, you can wait on those for now. You can see 3 files, but they're not here. That's an issue. So the big question is, what do we do? The mod page doesn't say this. I had to dig into the comments. So if we go back, you would have seen my UXM for unpacking. Basically, once you download this, unpack it, obviously, and then run the application. Basically, this will go to Sekiro. Just browse and configure it. Make sure the last thing you click is this Dark Souls file here. The one that we got rid of and changed up. If you didn't get rid of it and changed it up, then this will be the original, but you still need to unpack this. So just open and unpack. It may take a minute. However, I can close this window, so we're back here. Yeah, this takes a little bit. However, it is very, very important. And I will bring this off screen. However, this will be very, very necessary in a minute after we're done everything if you want your mod to be working properly. So I know there's a few different mods that change gameplay aspects. I use the cat mod because I want a very vanilla experience with some things, basically a quality of life change and update for me. However, there are a few other mods that change the gameplay experience very drastically. And I haven't downloaded them to test them out, but they might need the same method if you're going to do everything manually. Okay, so this is done. I can throw this off on my other screen. So now we can see we have a shit ton more files. And here's my Timac. My filter's in here somewhere. And here's my model. So what I can do, drag and drop. And replace everything in here. And then I'm going to drag and drop, place these in here too. Those 2 files that were the last thing to go in there, I believe they're what keep you offline, so you don't get banned. So, Fleshy Hollows. I'm not entirely sure where this stuff goes, so I always put it in the now lost file, I don't know where, text override. I believe that is correct, seeing as it does replace files, so no worries. Then the monster respawn, pretty easy. I'm going to move all this stuff over. I think it all does the same thing, but I'd like to have my bases covered. Basically, this mod makes it so, well, enemies don't stop spawning. I prefer it. This one's pretty easy. It gets rid of the effects they have on cutscenes. Sorry, the effects they have on cutscenes. So they're nice and clean, no buzz, no nothing else. Smooth UI. Pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. It's just a UI that I prefer. I use PlayStation buttons, so this is a mod I have to use so I can actually use my controller consistently. However, if you don't use those, don't worry about it. And then all of this stuff goes into text override. I wish it was more of a drag and drop file, but it's not the way it is sometimes. But I will double check I put that in the correct file, as that didn't give me any overrides. But I will be back in a sec to check that. And yes, I double checked, it does go into text override. I don't know why it didn't ask me if I wanted to override anything. Weird. Anyways, you could probably do this sooner, but I like to do it at the end of everything just in case. Just hit patch, and now all of your mods that needed these subfolders will be applied. Okay, I will give a disclaimer. First and foremost, you should always check to see if you installed mods correctly after every 2 or 3 mods. You can get away with doing them in chunks. However, be mindful that the less mods you are checking, like the interval wise, the easier it is to catch something you made a mistake of. Secondly, just because I found installing my mods this way works, I can't guarantee you following me will allow this to work for you. 3, if you can use Mod Organizer 2, it's probably better, as then it does all the work for you. I just couldn't get it to work for me. Anyways, I do hope this has made someone's life a little easier. And compiling all the info I found and that I needed, I will make sure to list the mods I use in the description, and I'll make sure to link the download to the unpacker that I used. That way, you don't have to go looking for it. You can just get it if you need it. Anyways, I'm going to end it here. So thank you. And I really hope this helped. But if it didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I messed up on. Or tell me what's confusing for you. Maybe I can explain it. Anyways, thank you and goodbye.